assure you of our commitment to providing much better broadcasts through the platform. So, looking at the ventures platform, it's of course one of the big private equity venture capital platforms helping to support entrepreneurs and innovators to succeed. It announced a partnership in the year with the Lagos State government through its agency, the Lagos State Science Research and Innovation Council, in a bid to find tech-enabled solutions to address the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a very major development in that space and really helped to bring up enterprises who had that potentials with innovations to bring solutions to the pandemic, as it really had its effect on the economy this year. CDC Group announced in the year an investment of $100 million in Helios Investment 4 Fund. The Helios Investors 4 Fund is a fourth of such fund run by Helios, as the first time CDC had invested in one of its funds since 2009, which the DFI said was a vote of confidence in the firm's work. FBN Quest Funds Limited, the alternative investment subsidiary of FBN Holdings, raised awareness on the opportunities of private equity for portfolio enhancement in addition to the use of traditional investing assets. This was one of the key messages in the year at a virtual interactive session with financial journalists focusing on the alternative investments and private equity business, the financial markets and the broader economy. Ijoma Agboti, the managing director of FBN Quest Funds, spoke of the organization's focus on developing a broad platform that will provide diversification and return-enhancing products for clients through various alternative asset classes. She stated that since the establishment of the Funds Limited in 2003, it has deployed in excess of 20 billion naira in over 70 companies and assets across various portfolios, and have continued to partner with their portfolio companies to deliver growth capital and provide value creation support. In the year, stakeholders looked, and this was one of the rare moments, because it's very rare where we had stakeholders in the market sit down to discuss the capital market and the role of private equity. So this happened this year through a webinar, and the stakeholders in this webinar believe that micro, small, and medium enterprises need access to institutionalized funding through vehicles like private equity that will enable them to create wealth and jobs. This happened this year, and this was in partnership and brought together stakeholders from the equities at Nigeria Stock Exchange, the FMDQ, the NASD. All the key markets in the ecosystem were present to discuss how they can move the market forward. FSD Africa Investments, the investment arm of the UK-funded financial inclusion organization FSD Africa, announced in the year $4.5 million commitment to funds set up by Lendable Incorporated. This will help boost the capacity of the alternative financial service providers in sub-Saharan Africa to provide credit to micro, small and medium enterprises recovering from the effects of the pandemic. Now let's go to some very interesting stories that happened in the year. Stripe, of course, that was a big story. Stripe acquired Paystack, a Nigerian fintech firm, for $200 million. That was arguably one of the biggest stories of the year. I mean, a huge takeover, $200 million. If you calculate that, you were seeing about almost 100 billion naira in funds. I mean, that was huge. And that again shows how companies in Nigeria are bringing compelling stories to attract major tech companies and investments from the US and even UK. Also, African genomics startup 54Gene raised $15 million led by Adjuvant Capital, again founded by a Nigerian, and it shows you how Nigerians are leading the pack in startups that can really attract capital. The Paystack is also has co-founders that are Nigerians. AutoCheck, the automotive technology company that aims to build solutions for the African market, raised $3.4 million in a pre-seed funding round co-led by TLCom Capital and 4DX Ventures, with inclusion from Golden Palm Investments, Lateral Capital, Keppel Africa Ventures, MSA Capital, and a number of local angel and seed investors. The startup will use the investments to grow its Nigeria and Ghana market, and will see further investments in technology and growing its team. So indeed, a lot of prospects for 2021. Let's look at some matters that matters arising, things that were immense concern in the discourse across the private equity and venture capital space in the year. First was the need for more local private equity groups in Nigeria to take advantage and invest in businesses that have promising and compelling stories of transformation and expansion. The need for Nigerian unicorns to come on board because the major concern is that much of the investments we are seeing are coming from the West. And when that happens, they also take off and it has an effect on the country. So we need to see more local investors, billionaires, senior business leaders who retire to have huge funds come on board and support businesses in Nigeria. So it'd be nice to hear more in terms of acquisitions, investments from the major equity firms and venture capital firms based in Nigeria. Next was the need for businesses to take structure and proper accounting records seriously to be accessible to potential funding from private equity and venture capital firms, because one of the major issues raised by venture capital and private equity firms is that they need to see businesses having structure. They need to see the accounting and financing records that are up to date, and they need to see clear trajectory of where they're going to and what the strategy is, because most times that has been their challenge. And this has to do with a lot of due diligence to even find those companies and invest in them. So very important. Next is that health tech, agribusiness, virtual workplace platforms, and fintech companies remain major segments that will attract investments even in the year to come, that's year 2021. So venture capital and private equity firms really know where they would like to put in their funds. And of course, regulations and policy environment must continue to remain favorable to incentivize investments into the country. This is one issue that has continued to be of huge interest. And of course, the policies of government, particularly with the recent Company and Allied Matters Act 2020 that was signed into law, and the Finance Bill 2020, all those legislations are watched closely by venture capital and private equity firms to see how they can invest. And also another aspect is the foreign exchange. Foreign exchange reforms, how our foreign exchange operates and plays remains very important. If it's liberalized, like major business communities say, it will help to attract more investments. Well, let's take you to a wrap-up of the continental developments as we begin to wind down on private equity and venture capital space for the year. International Finance Corporation, a member of the World Bank Group, announced a loan of up to $100 million in the year, and this was to Nigeria's Zenith Bank to help it increase support to clients and companies whose cash flows have been disrupted by challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The IFC loan to Zenith Bank was its first investment in Africa through its COVID-19 fast-tracking financing support package. The funding was designed to help Zenith, an existing IFC client and Africa's sixth largest bank, overcome challenges resulting from ongoing limited access to foreign currency, working capital, and trade funding. CDC Group, the UK's publicly owned impact investor, signed a memorandum of understanding with Nigeria's Sovereign Investment Authority in the year. The strategic investment partnership was designed to facilitate long-term inclusive growth and encourage private capital to scale up the participation in high-impact sectors of the Nigerian economy. The agreement includes information sharing on prospective projects in Nigeria and Africa at large, with the ambition to co-invest in sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, infrastructure, and climate resilience. The partnership will foster collaboration on areas of knowledge sharing with an explicit objective of creating jobs and generating impact in Nigeria's and African economies. Ethos Private Equity, one of Africa's leading alternative asset managers, announced in the year an agreement with the Johannesburg Stock Exchange and the London Stock Exchange listed investment manager 91 to take on an advisory contract for 91's Africa's private equity funds, effective, that was in December 15, 2020. The contract marks a milestone for Ethos, significantly extending its platform across the continent and reinforcing its commitment to a Pan-African strategy. After more than 3 decades of private equity investment in Africa and $2 billion of capital deployed, Ethos now manages or advises on 30 active investments across 8 funds in the continent. And as part of ongoing efforts to foster sustainable investing across the firm, Africa Invest, a leading Pan-African mid-capital focused private equity firm, announced in the year it has become an official signatory of the United Nations Supported Principles for Responsible Investment, PRI, through its new membership of the unique and leading platform, AfricInvest. It joins a large network of players and investors committed to integrating environmental, social, and governance considerations into their investment processes. And African Infrastructure Investment Managers, AIIM, one of the largest infrastructure-focused private equity fund managers, successfully completed a capital increase of $80 million for its flagship Pan-African Infrastructure Fund, AIF3. The capital increase in the year takes the total commitments for AIF3 to $400 million and represents one of the largest capital raises closed for an African fund since the advent of the COVID-19 pandemic. So indeed, it was an eventful year for private equity, venture capital space amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, and definitely 2021 has a lot in offer. But of course, one thing we would take note of is that companies also that have environment, social, and governance principles incorporated in their values and strategies will definitely be companies to watch, attracting more investments from impact investor, venture capital, and private equity firms in the year 2021. That'll be all for today's edition of the Market Review. Thank you for being part of the year, looking at developments in the private equity and venture capital space. If you still want to read and get more insights into what's happening in that space, log on to www.proshng.com to watch our videos with our news stories and reports. Then just scroll down, you'll see private equity when you log on to the website on the right-hand bar, and you get all this information you need. Thank you for being part of the activities and discourse this year. Looking forward to a refreshed 2021, where we will have a new set of programming that's all encompassing for our market review. This is now part of the way to serve our viewers, subscribers better. I'll give you further updates on that in the days to come. But till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.